Now, Mark Carney will face questions next week about what the Bank of England knew about alleged wrongdoing in the foreign exchange markets. The bank has suspended one member of staff and stepped up an investigation into whether or not its officials knew about market manipulation long before they acted to stop it. As Andy Verity's discovered, the bank was discussing the potential for market manipulation with foreign exchange traders as early as 2006.
Regulators have said allegations of foreign exchange manipulation are every bit as bad as the LIBOR rate-fixing scandal that cost banks billions in fines. But now, the Bank of England's at the heart of it. At the centre of the allegations are chat rooms. You might use them for gossip, but in the city, chat rooms called the Cartel or the Bandits Club were allegedly used by traders to swap information on what their clients were buying and selling ahead of a crucial 4 p.m. deadline when prices on big trades were set. If one trader revealed their client was about to buy a large amount of dollars at 4, other traders could buy dollars before then. That could edge the price up, allowing them to sell a minute later at a profit. The Bank of England's been investigating whether its officials were told traders were sharing client information like that, and even whether it condoned it. Today, it suspended an official and stepped up its investigation into what its officials knew.
The allegation is that the Bank of England itself was engaged in conversations with leading traders about the possibility of manipulation of foreign exchange markets, which go back for some years. And that's tremendously serious if there was any kind of knowledge or even worse tolerance of something like this happening and action wasn't taken.
How embarrassing this is for the Bank of England will depend on what happened in a 15-minute conversation here at BNP Paribas, one of the city's biggest merchant banks, where Bank of England officials met leading foreign currency traders to discuss what was and wasn't proper on the foreign exchange markets. We've seen the official Bank of England minutes of that meeting on the 23rd of April 2012. Under item 6, it says, there was a brief discussion on extra levels of compliance that many bank trading desks were subject to. Nothing too shocking there. But one of the currency traders reportedly took notes saying that at that point, the bank was told traders were sharing client information. And the bank told the traders it wasn't improper.
Are you investigating this? What's going on?
Yes. The Bank of England does not condone any form of market manipulation in any context whatsoever.
Today, further Bank of England minutes showed traders raised evidence of manipulation with the Bank of England way back in 2006. Yet it was only last October, 7 years later, that the bank's sister regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, started investigating foreign exchange manipulation.
If the Bank of England is subsequently found at the end of the review to have known about the activities which the FSA is investigating and may potentially lead to legal actions, then it will be very embarrassing for the Bank of England to have been made aware of those issues some time ago, months, perhaps years, and not to have raised the issues with those banks and other regulators and taken it further.
Swapping information on client orders in internet chat rooms is now clearly against the rules, and 20 traders have been suspended or fired. But it won't be so easy for regulators to levy multi-million-pound fines on the banks if it turns out the Bank of England knew all about it.
Andy Verity there. Well, let's talk more about this with Dr. Pippa Malmgren, a former economic advisor to George Bush, who now works in asset management. Pippa, thanks for coming in. Just clarify for us this whole question of whether something is proper or improper, because it sounds like the rules have been changed.
Well, and they are very fluid in the sense that practices that were considered perfectly normal 5 or 6 years ago now in retrospect don't look so good in the aftermath of the financial crisis. And I think part of the reason the regulators like the Bank of England and the SEC in the States were having conversations with people in the market was to understand how the markets were operating, which is not to say they thought it was inappropriate or improper. And I think it is still unclear what was improper and what was just normal business practice.
Because this has been below the radar. Why has it been sort of kept so quiet for so long?
I look at it a different way. I think that what we're seeing is a systematic effort by policymakers, politicians, to squeeze financial services to find examples of crossing the line and wrongdoing. It started with the LIBOR investigation. That was a success.
But when you say they're squeezing, you don't think this is inappropriate to go and...
I think it's a normal response to a financial crisis that was so severe it required public funds to bail these institutions out. So in the aftermath of that, they are now looking at each business line and trying to discern what practices are occurring and are they appropriate. So as I went through LIBOR, achieved some really substantial fines, then they turned to new areas, and now we're talking about foreign exchange and options.
And we're talking about the Bank of England. We've seen it with LIBOR and the commercial banks. And of course, the Bank of England has said it's now auditing its own staff and all the rest of it. But if this goes back, as Andy Verity suggested, to 2006, and it didn't act as quickly as it could, that's highly embarrassing, isn't it?
Well, it is an issue. And again, this question of what was the appropriate stance for the regulator, today, their actions in 2006 look different than they did in 2006.
But they're also taking on more regulatory powers.
Indeed, absolutely. So I think, look, let's understand the issue at hand. Every day at 4 o'clock, all of the clients in the foreign exchange market, which every day is, roughly $4 to $5 trillion a day, there was one moment in time where there was a clear fixed price. That's when most of the clients wanted to transact so that they would have certainty. In other words, the clients wanted the fixing. So the allegation is not that the fixing shouldn't happen. It's what information was exchanged about clients in the process of arriving at the fixed price, and how much involvement was there by regulators in that process.
Is it very similar to LIBOR in that way then? I mean, is there a direct comparison to be made between these scandals?
Yeah, I do think there is, but in the same way that LIBOR actually systematically pushed the interest rate lower, which was beneficial to the public and the customer, this may be true in this case as well, but that's not the point. The point is that regulators are looking for examples of transgression and finding ways to stop the financial markets from engaging in business practices that today make us uncomfortable. And instead of writing a new rule, it happens in the course of an investigation. Right. And when you start looking, you find all kinds of other things you weren't even looking for.
So if we are at the beginning of this investigation now, how far do you think this could spread? I
think it's going to be quite widespread. And again, because it's not just foreign exchange, it's also options, which is the business of taking bets on possible future outcomes. I think that if I were a politician and I were a regulator looking to fine, I'd say this is richer territory for success and scoring points.
So you think this is
LIBOR.
about trying to find fines, do you?
I think there's a strand of that. I think there's a strand of that for sure, but I also think that we could find that there were examples of crossing a line, but I also think that what was normal business practice at the time definitely is not acceptable today, and they will be judged in retrospect.
Pippa Malmgren, very interesting to hear. Thank you.